synergist. I am an Ayurvedic psychotherapist, a passionate infopreneur, edupreneur, and medical writer. I am on a pursuit of my mission to address, promote, and propagate Ayurveda and psychotherapy globally. In this discourse, every week, uh, I talk on either we conduct discussions or I talk on different subjects of Ayurveda, psychotherapy, mental health, and related aspects. So today's topic is the most requested topic. So we are talking about Bhagavad Gita and psychotherapy. So is Bhagavad Gita anywhere linked to psychotherapy? Let me tell you an interesting point that Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna, is the best and the first psychotherapist this planet has ever seen. So, the Bhagavad Gita, as we know, uh, it is not just a spiritual scripture. So, everyone wants to be happy, and everyone is constantly searching for that happiness, whether a child or an old man or a woman or anybody, and everybody is looking for happiness. But unfortunately, for the want of real knowledge of happiness, they're searching for it everywhere and getting frustrated. Bhagavad Gita shows us where that happiness is. Just like when we purchase a new gadget, a user manual comes with it. The manual teaches us how to make the best use of that gadget and derive maximum happiness out of it. For the want of proper knowledge, we may invent our own ways of using it, but finally we will become frustrated. So, Bhagavad Gita is the manual given by the Supreme Lord Krishna, which guides us in making the best use of this human life and deriving real happiness from it. In the modern times, when people are more confused and misdirected, the Gita becomes all the more relevant for individual as well as the society at large in bringing back the stability and happiness in life. So, Bhagavad Gita is a manual given by Supreme Lord Krishna. So, this manual, is it just a spiritual scripture or is it more? Yes, it is much, much more. So, I, being an Ayurvedic psychotherapist, my emphasis would be on how is Bhagavad Gita linked to, psychotherapy. Every each time I would emphasize on one of the therapies and let you know that how Bhagavad Gita is actually linked to the therapies. So today's topic is Bhagavad Gita Analogies of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. We call it CBT. To Bhagavad Gita, how is cognitive behavioral therapy linked to Bhagavad Gita? So, when a comparative I started reading Bhagavad Gita just 2 years ago. Before that I never paid such attention on it. So when I started reading Bhagavad Gita, I found out similarities from cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoanalytic psychotherapy, and psychodynamic psychotherapy. So I started writing articles on it. So this was my first article comparing cognitive behavioral therapy to Bhagavad Gita. So, how the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita of those times is relevant till now to the cognitive behavioral therapy of the modern psychotherapy. So, cognitive behavioral therapy, if I have to explain, the way it presumes the way as to how we perceive our surroundings, the way we look at the world and ourselves influence our behavior and emotions. It addresses negative patterns and distortions in our thoughts. So, CBT addresses negative patterns and distortions in our thoughts. So, what is CBT? If I have to explain it in the simpler words, cognitive behavioral therapy is a talking therapy that can help manage your problems by changing the way you think and behave. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a problem oriented strategy. It focuses on current problems and finding solutions for them. So CBT is based on the concept of that concept that your thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, and actions are interconnected, and that negative thoughts and feelings can trap you in a negative cycle. So this is basically a talk therapy, you know, wherein we deal, therapists deal and focus on the current problems and finding solutions. So, cognitive behavioral therapy aims to help you to deal with the overwhelming problems in a more positive way, breaking them down into smaller parts. So, CBT emphasizes on how to change these negative patterns to improve the way you feel. It looks for practical ways to improve your state of mind on a daily basis. So, how is it actually linked to Bhagavad Gita? In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna was the therapist, of course, and Arjuna was the victim or the client. The way Lord Krishna eliminates the cognitive distortions from the mind of Arjuna and motivates him to fight the battle is depicted in Gita. A good relationship between Krishna and Arjuna is maintained through unconditional positive regard, the basic acceptance and support of a person, regardless of what the person says or does. Just the client therapist relationship. So we can compare Krishna and Arjuna's bond to a client therapist relationship. It involves active participation from the both sides, just as the Krishna and Arjuna and their parallel enthusiasm in the cognitive behavioral therapy as well. As much as is the role of the therapist, the client also has to actively participate in the therapy. Otherwise it would be futile, it would be of no use. Similarly, cognitive behavioral therapy emphasizes on the present, just as Krishna focused on solving the distress related to the battle and explained how perfection can only be achieved through action. So, Krishna explains to Arjuna that the perfection is not a reality, it's like a myth, it can only be achieved through the action, not by procrastination. So, CBT aims to teach the client to be his or her own therapist. So, CBT also requires journaling at times. We do tell our clients to keep a record, keep a journal. Just as Krishna taught Arjuna the way to calm himself and how to realize his duties, Lord Krishna is as empathetic to Arjuna as a therapist is to client in distress. Arjuna unfairly holds himself accountable for the destructions which reflect his depressed state of mind. So Arjuna was holding unfairly himself unfairly accountable for the destruction. So and he was his state at the time of the war. And by the way, this all this is at the time of the war. As you all know that Bhagavad Gita is a scripture which was a manual written, specified, all these specifications are at the time of the war. So how does the CBT work here? The way CBT tries to work with patients to identify, evaluate and respond their dysfunctional thinking, Krishna makes Arjuna understand his delusional thinking. For instance, Arjuna, while being on the battlefield, is much tensed and worried, which stresses him out. He is worried about how is he going to stand against his own family. At this point, Krishna explains how the stress is not permanent and will resolve soon. Krishna helps to calm his mind through imparting the knowledge of importance of beauty and karma yoga, and which is one of the most important concept of the Gita. Krishna says that this stress is very temporary, just like the therapist explains it to the client that the anxiety is not long lasting. So CBT also, what we do is, we do the same, we apply the same method as Krishna applied with Arjuna. So Arjuna, just like any other client, portrays the act of self blame, guilt, and blames himself for whatever is happening. Krishna explains that this is not true. Just like a therapist consoles the client about his or her false beliefs, Krishna explains the importance of karma yoga by telling him not to expect any rewards in return. So, this is the main shloka of Bhagavad Gita. The shlokas part and the meaning part, I thought that I would deal in another session. In this session, I'll just explain whatever is related to psychotherapy. So just keep doing karma, which helps relieve from stress or guilt, in which in turn emphasizes on not to think of unreal goals, as mentioned in cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy also talks about the realistic goals. So this is the thing, like, this is the way I could correlate, this is just a sample. I could correlate cognitive behavioral therapy to Bhagavad Gita of those times. So in conclusion, I will just say that the above mentioned analogy is a small scale example of how ancient Indian scripture Bhagavad Gita enlightened us about the modern psychotherapy techniques. We in this era have to acknowledge, appreciate, study, and propagate this ancient historic inheritance globally. Um, Actually, my pursuit, in my pursuit of reaching, making Ayurveda and psychotherapy global, I also want people to acknowledge and appreciate and study and propagate Bhagavad Gita as well. Bhagavad Gita is more than, much more than treasure. So don't keep the Bhagavad Gita books in your um, god rooms, and just do puja of it. Just open the book, just read the book. So today I think I had made some points, regarding how the important lessons we learn from Bhagavad Gita. So these from in another session, I will just let know, I will just explain how psychodynamic psychotherapy is related to Bhagavad Gita, and how it also reflects, Bhagavad Gita also reflects all types of psychotherapy. And so we, being Indians, must really consider reading Bhagavad Gita and applying the principles of Bhagavad Gita in our everyday life. So that's it for today. All my appointments are online, and you can, if for appointments and more information, you can just DM me. I am also giving medical writing services. I'm offering medical writing services. If you want any any medical writing services for articles, blogs, you can approach me for that as well. So I'll provide my email ID in the description, so you can contact me through email ID as well. So that's it for now. Thank you. Namaste.